Okay, so this is the homework for October 1st. I can't believe we're already in October. The end of the school year, or at the end of the year is coming to a close, and it's going by pretty fast. Okay, let's go over these problems. And the first one, it's asking what is the slope of the line? The slope is 1/2. Okay, what is the y-intercept? The y-intercept is -4. Graph the line. Okay, so my starting point or my y-intercept is -4, so I'm going to go down 4, place my dot there. My slope is 1/2, so that means we're going to go up 1, right 2, up 1, right 2, or you could go down 1, left 2 as well. Okay, here's the equation of that line. We know the little man is walking uphill. He always goes from left to right. And the reason why he's walking uphill is because our slope is a positive slope. If it had a negative on it, like a -1/2, we'd have to go up 1, left 2 instead. But since it's positive, we would go up 1, right 2. Okay, so up 1, right 2. Next one, a line that goes through. So this one's asking, without graphing, can we figure out what the slope is? Okay, and so I'm going to look at the change in y and change in x. So I really like t-charts. I am going to write 2, 5 first. And the reason I chose 2, 5 first is because the 2 on the x comes before 4 on the x. So remember, this is our x and our second number is y. So we have 2, 5, then 4, 1. So if our little way to figure out slope is change in y over change in x, our change in y is going down by 4. And our change in x, it's going up by 2. So our change in y is -4. Our change in x is +2. -4 divided by 2 is -2. Okay, let's try B. A line that goes through the origin and through the point 10, 5. So the origin means, here's the origin. It means this point right here, which is 0, 0. That's our origin. So on our t-chart, I'm going to go ahead and put 0, 0 first. Then I'm going to go ahead and write the 10, 5. Okay. And just a reminder, we know to find our slope, it's change in y over change in x. Our change in y is +5. Our change in x is +10. So we have 5 over 10. You could leave it that way, or you could simplify it. It's 1/2. Okay. Next one, C, a vertical line, one that travels up and down and goes through the point 6, -5. I already know vertical lines do not have a valid slope. Remember how it's undefined, and I'll show you why our slope is undefined. So slope is undefined. And the reason why is because if I were to graph it, I know we're not supposed to, but I'm just going to show it. If I go over right 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here's my point. And I know I have a vertical line. Here it is. If I were to figure out change in y over change in x, okay, that's my y. Here's my x. My change in y to go from this point to any point, like let's say here I'm going up 1. And my change in x, see how I don't have to move left or right? So technically my x is 0 because we never move. Okay, so can we divide 1 by a 0? And that is not possible because 0 does not go into 1. There's no possible number times 0 that gives us 1. That's why it is undefined. It doesn't work. Okay, next one. This one says a line that goes through the points 1, 6, and 10, 6. So again, I'm going to do change in y over change in x. I'm going to write the 1, 6 first. I'm going to write 10, 6 next just because I like it to be in order in terms of x. Our change in y is 0. and our change in x is 9 plus 9. So again, if we use change in y over change in x, we get 0 over 9. And does 9 go into 0? It does. 9 times 0 is 0. So our slope is equal to 0. Or sometimes you might see it as slope of 0. Okay. Next one, this one says Miss Kai's class is studying a tile pattern. The rule for the tile pattern is y equals 10x minus 18. Khalil thinks that figure 12 of this pattern will have 108 tiles. So I'm going to go ahead and remember how the y represents the tiles and the x represents our figure. So if that's the case, I'm going to go ahead and put 12 into our figure. So I have 10 times 12 minus 18, and I know that's going to equal my y, which is the number of tiles. So 10 times 12 gives us 120. And if I subtract 120 minus 18, that gives me 102. So I do not agree with Khalil. It should not have 108 tiles. There should be a total of 102 tiles instead. Okay, and this one is asking for the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so the slope is 5/3. I'm going to go ahead and write slope is 5/3. And the y-intercept is -4. Okay, next one, our slope. Another way of saying slope is our m. And our slope is -4/7. That's the number of tiles it's going by. And the y-intercept, another way of saying y-intercept is b, is 3. Okay, it's coming from here. Okay, and I'm going to remind you, this is called slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. The m stands for our slope, also known as the repeated addition, the constant. And the b stands for our y-intercept, okay, or our starting point, figure 0. And this one, it looks like our starting point is -5, so that's our y-intercept, also known as the b is -5. Do you notice that the mx is missing? And when I mean mx from here, our b was the -5, but the mx is missing, which means m is 0. So our slope would be 0. That means if I were to graph that, here's what it would look like. So my starting point is at -5. So I go down 5. And since my slope is 0, it's going to be a flat horizontal line. And the last one, A, we're going to evaluate for these. That means just substitute it in. So I'm going to substitute the -3 into x. So I get Okay, in place of x, I'm going to go ahead and substitute it with -3 squared. Do you notice there's two negatives? Because one is from this right here, and one is from the actual number is -3. Okay, plus 3 times -3. So we're going to use PEMDAS, order of ops, go from left to right. Okay, so I see an exponent, so we got to square the -3. So that means -3 times -3, which is +9. So I'm going to put a 9 here. See this negative? We got to bring it down. And we're going to multiply these as well. 3 times a -3 is -9. Now we could combine those two together and it gives us -18. Okay, so A is -18. Okay, let's go over B. Okay, we're going to substitute -1 where we see the x. So I'm going to write it to the right. We have 5 minus, okay, for x, I'm going to substitute the -1 and then copy the -2. So if I'm using PEMDAS, I got to do parentheses first. So see inside the parentheses, I have this right here. Let's combine them. That gives us -3. So I'm going to copy the rest down. The next thing we have to do is exponents. Here's our exponents. -3 squared means -3 times -3, which gives us a +9. So I'm going to write 5 plus 9, and that gives us 14. Okay, we have 2 left, C and D. Okay, and let's go over C. So let's substitute. We have -5 over, instead of K, we're going to replace that with -1 plus 1. So that gives us -5 over 0. So we're trying to figure out, is there a number times 0 that gives us -5? That's impossible. No number multiplied by 0 will give us a -5. So this is called, it's undefined. It's not possible. And remember, that's why undefined slopes, this is an undefined slope, right, when it's vertical. And let's go over our last one. Okay, we're going to evaluate this time. It looks like we have to evaluate x for 2. So wherever I see x, I'm going to replace it for the 2. So I have the absolute value of 2 over. See the x here, I'm going to replace it for 2 plus. For the y, I'm going to go ahead and substitute the -3. Minus, right here, x squared, that will be 2 squared. Plus, instead of the y, that will be -3. Okay, so let's go ahead and use PEMDAS. Okay, so I don't see any parentheses, but we could kind of treat this, all the stuff inside the absolute value, as something we want to do first. Okay, so things that are grouped, that's grouped together, just like parentheses, those things inside the parentheses are grouped together. So we're going to do that first. So we have 2 over -1, and 2 divided by -1 is -2. Remember, we have to take the absolute value of that, so that's +2. So this right here becomes a +2. Okay, so next we have to do exponents. Here's exponents, and notice we're squaring the 2, not a -2. Okay, so 2 squared gives us +4. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make that a 4, but do you see that negative in front of it? We got to bring that down as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring this down, so plus a -3. Okay, now I know the next thing is multiply, no multiplying, no division, adding. So some of you guys might think, oh, we got to add these two right here. Well, when it comes to adding and subtracting, you just go in order from left to right. So I'm going to start with this right here, 2 minus 4, that gives us -2. And then we have to add a -3. So they're all on the same team. They're all negative soldiers, so they don't have to fight one another. We just combine them and we get -5.